Hello, and welcome to my video tutorial on programming the Yaesu FT-2800. My name is Daniel Poe, KF4LYU. In this video, I'm going to take you step by step through the procedures showing you how to easily set up and program that Yaesu FT-2800. In this video, I'm going to show you how easy it is to set up and program that Yaesu FT-2800. I've taken everything and I've broken it down. I've tried to make it as simple as possible. First off, we're going to be going through how to make changes in some of your menu items. Then we're going to get into, setting up your repeater frequencies, your offset, your tones, and then programming, your memory channels. So if you have your radio handy, if you have any problems programming that radio, just go ahead and get it out and get all your repeater information ready, your frequency, your tones, or what have you, and just watch and just follow along with me as I show you how to put all that information in and store it into a memory channel, and you'll just see how really easy it is, and you'll just have that radio on the air in no time. The Yaesu FT-2800 is capable of doing more than what you're going to see in this tutorial. What we're going to be focusing on in this tutorial is getting the radio programmed for repeater operation. The radio is capable of doing more, like your wires, your packet operation. That requires additional equipment and setup. I don't have any of that equipment. I've never used those features. So there's a lot of good information online about that if you are interested in those features. However, in this tutorial, we're just going to be focusing on get that radio set up and get ready so you can start hitting some repeaters. So we got a lot to go over, so let's go ahead and get started. Okay, first thing we want to do is turn the unit on. And to do that, we want to press and hold the orange button. To adjust the display brightness level, we want to go to the Set Megahertz button and press for half a second. As you see here, these are your menus. That's number 5 on the menu. We want to take the dial and we want to go to 7 to the dimmer. Okay, once that's selected, press the megahertz button just momentarily. And the 3, that's going to be the brightness level. 3 is going to be the brightest. The default level is 2. I like mine set a little brighter, so I keep it on 3. If you want to turn the brightness level down, just rotate the dial to 1, or you can cut it completely off. And whichever level you decide on, once you've made your selection, press the megahertz button and hold for half a second, and that programs that brightness level. To enable the automatic power off feature, we want to go to the megahertz set, press momentarily. Alright, we want to go to 0-1 on the menus, to the APO. Alright, just press momentarily. The default setting is off on this feature. If we want to set a specific time for this to automatically power off if the radio stays at rest, this feature is useful in minimizing battery drain in a mobile installation. If you forget to leave the transceiver on, after a specific amount of time, just say 4 hours, if I forget to leave this radio on, if there's no buttons pressed or the push to talk, if it's not keyed to transmit, after 4 hours, this radio will automatically power itself off. Okay, so if I want to leave that on 4 hours, I want to press the megahertz set and hold for half a second. Okay. The Timeout Timer feature prevents your transceiver from transmitting a dead carrier for a long period of time in the event that the microphone's push-to-talk switch is accidentally locked into the transmit condition. Now, to go in and change the time, we want to go into and press the megahertz set for a half second, and we want to go to 31 on the menus. Okay. Alright, to the TOT, that's the Timeout Timer. Alright, we just want to press momentarily. The 6 minutes is the factory default settings on that. Now we can take the dial and turn it down to whatever time we want to set it to. I'm going to set mine on 4. So if something happens, if I accidentally, put the microphone down and the button becomes pressed, the radio will actually transmit, for 4 minutes, and after that, the transmit will actually shut off and it'll go back to the receive mode. So I'm going to leave that on 4 minutes and press the megahertz set for half a second. To enable or disable the key beeper, we want to go to megahertz set and press momentarily, and we'll go to menu item number 3. Okay, to the beep. What this is going to do, this allows us to enable or disable the key beep. You see, when I press one of these buttons, you can hear the beep. Okay, if I want to, the default setting is on, so if I want to turn that off, I just take the dial and turn that to the off. Okay, now as you can see, whenever I press, you don't hear the beep. So if I want to cut it back on, I'll press momentarily, then take the knob and cut it back on, then press and hold for half a second. Now as you can see, I have the beep. The FT-2800 has 4 power levels, 65 watts being the highest and 5 watts being the lowest. To activate your power settings, the low button here, when you don't see anything shown here, it means that your power level is set on high, which would be 65 watts. To bring it down, you just press the low, just momentarily. As you can see, the medium indicator is here. That's at 25 watts. Press once again, and it's on low 2. That's now going to be 10 watts. Press again, low 1 is going to be 5 watts. Okay, you can do the same thing on the microphone by pressing the C key. Just do the same thing. Each time you press it, it's going to switch to a different power level. The FT-2800 has 10 weather broadcast stations. To access the stations, you want to push the P4 button, which is the lower right, the black button on the very bottom of the microphone. Once you press that button,
regional weather conditions at 9 p.m. It was clear, with a temperature of 85 at Tupelo and 88 at Knoxville. It was relative humidity was at Memphis and 82 at Nashville. It was 29 and 85 at Birmingham. Now here is the local forecast. Heat advisory in effect until 7 a.m.
and to get back to the regular frequencies,
tonight, partly cloudy with isolated showers.
Just press P4 once again, and it takes you back to the frequency you were. To activate the lock feature, we want to go in and press the megahertz set for half a second. On the menus, we want to go to menu number 14. Okay. Once you see the lock here, we want to press just momentarily the megahertz. Okay, the factory default on this feature is off. Okay, we can take the dial. Okay, if we dial to the key, that means if we enable that, any of these keys that's pressed won't have any effect on the radio. Alright, this dial, if that's enabled, we won't be able to use this dial to, adjust any frequencies. Okay, and if the key plus dial, that means all these keys, excluding the power, but the megahertz, reverse, low, and D/MR plus the dial will be locked out. Alright, the push to talk is the push to talk button on the microphone. Well, if that's enabled, well, the radio will not be able to transmit. Alright, the K plus P is the keys plus the push to talk on the microphone. Okay, the D plus P is the dial plus the push to talk button on the microphone. Alright, and if you select all and enable that, we'll want none of the features on the radio, either the dial, the keys, or the push to talk. Nothing to be worked. The radio will just completely be in a locked state. Okay. So what if we want to do, let's say if we want to go back and lock out the push to talk on the microphone. Alright. We'll select the PTT. As you can see, the megahertz set is flashing. We want to just select that for a half a second press. You can see the lock, the key up here on top of the screen. that actually indicates that that feature has been locked out. Anytime you see that, it means one of the features has been locked out. And to get back in and unlock it or to change it, you want to press again for half a second. Okay. And then press momentarily. And just go back, and we'll just go ahead and cut everything off to where nothing is locked out. And once that is selected, just press for half a second and everything will be normal. Another handy menu item we have allows us to see the actual DC supply voltage either coming from the power supply or your battery. Okay, to read it, let's go to the megahertz set and press for half a second, and we want to go to number 6 on the menus. That's your DC voltage in there, so we want to press momentarily and see the 14.5. That's the voltage coming from my power supply to the radio. And to get out, just press for half a second. You're back to your frequency. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to program the radio for repeater operations. I have 2 repeaters that I'm going to program into the radio. As you can see, we're still in the memory mode. As you can see, the MR, and we're on the first channel in our memory mode. To get to where we need to program for like repeater operations, we need to get into the Vfo mode. And to get from the memory to the Vfo mode, we need to press the D/MR twice. Okay, and this is going to be in the Vfo mode, as you can see here. You see the Vfo. Okay, when we get here, you can see the automatic repeater shift is working because you see the negative offset there. The first repeater I'm going to program has a frequency of 147020. So I'm going to turn the knob up to 147020. I can either do it with the dial, or I can just directly push it in through the microphone. So, okay, you can see we're at 147020 with a positive offset. Okay, I know this repeater has a tone of 131.8 hertz. So what I have to do, I have to get in and activate the tone as well as set the tone frequency that this radio is going to have to transmit with the carrier to actually access the repeater. To do that, we want to go here to the megahertz set, and we want to press and hold for a half a second, and we want to go to 28. Okay, when you go to 28, you're going to see the Squelch type. Okay, just press momentarily, and you're going to see the off. And what we want to do, we want to select the TNC, the tone encoder. What that does, that actually, programs the radio to where it's going to actually send a tone once it's keyed. All right, so once that's enabled, we need to go back out of that, and to do that, we need to press and hold. Okay, then press once again for half a second. Then we need to go to 27 on the menus, and the Squelch T and F, we need to press momentarily. All right, this is the hertz of the tone. We're going to have to go to 131.8. So we want to dial that up to 131.8, and we want to press the megahertz set for half a second. Okay, that is all it's required to access this repeater. So let's go ahead and give that a try. Okay, that worked fine. That is the K4CVH repeater. Now, in a moment, I'm going to come back and I'm going to show you how to put the repeater's call sign. Where you see the frequency here, the 147020, I'm going to show you how to put the repeater's call sign there. So when you go back through your memory modes, you will actually see the repeater's call sign instead of the frequency. Okay, so see, I've got this repeater set. Everything is ready to go. See, I'm still in the Vfo mode, so I want to program this frequency into memory slot number 14. Okay, to do that, I want to take the D/MR and press and hold. Okay, and then you're going to see that number flash You want to take that and turn that back to whatever slot you want to put it in, and you want to take it and just momentarily. Okay, and to get from the VFO to the memories, let's go ahead and just momentarily. All right, so we're in the memories here. That's memory, that's number 1. So let's go on up through and, okay, and there's the repeater that I just stored. Go ahead and give that another try. Okay. Okay, since we had so much fun programming that last repeater, I'm going to show you how to do another one. Okay, as you can see, we're still in the memory mode. All right, we're on memory channel number 14, and that is the frequency for the last repeater we stored. The next repeater I'm going to store has a frequency of 145.130, and it has a 103.5 hertz tone. All right, so what I'm going to have to do, I've got to get out of the memory mode, and I've got to get to the VFO mode. And to do that, we'll go over to the D/MR, and we want to press it twice. Okay, as you can see, in the lower right-hand corner of the screen, you've got the VFO display. That means that you're now in the VFO mode. Okay, I got to get from 147020 down to 145130. Now we can do that by turning the dial, which is the slow way, or the quickest way will be just take the microphone and just press it in. 1453130, and we're there. Okay, as you can see, the negative offset's there. The T is up there showing that the tone is still activated. Okay, but you remember the last repeater that we programmed, the 147020, well, that tone still has that 131.8 hertz set, for it. So I've got to get in and I've got to change the frequency for that tone. Because see, if I try to key this repeater right now, I'm not going to be able to key it because it still has the tone, for the other repeater. I've got to set this tone for 103.5 hertz. And to do that, I've got to go here to the megahertz, set, press, hold for 1 second. Okay, in the Squelch TNF, it'll be your menu number 27. Okay, we want to press just momentarily. Okay, and see, that's 131.8. I've got to change that to 103.5 hertz. So I want to dial that down to 103.5. Okay, and I want to press and hold for about a half a second. Okay, now I'll be able to key that repeater. Okay, that worked perfect. Okay, now that we've got that repeater information all stored, let's go ahead and store it into the memory slot. I'm going to store this into the memory slot number 15. And to do that, let's go over here to the D/MR, and we want to hold that for a half a second. You see that number blinking? We want to dial that back to number 15 and just press just momentarily. Okay, you see that stop blinking? Now let's go to the memory mode and check it. And to do that, let's just go one time. All right, see, that's the 147020 and number 14 that we stored prior. All right, let's go up to 15. Okay, there's the 145130. Okay, another feature you may find pretty handy on this radio is going to be the tone squelch. What this does, it enables your squelch to actually block out any, all right, say I'm on 147020. All right, I know there's an adjacent repeater that comes in occasionally on this same frequency. And when I've got my radio set here, I'm trying to listen to just this one repeater, I'll actually hear this other repeater come in occasionally, on this same frequency. But I can enable the tone squelch for this radio. Now the adjacent repeater has a different tone, that's going to be necessary to access that repeater. And in the radios that's actually required to access that repeater is actually broadcasting that tone with the carrier. And it's actually being, retransmitted through the repeater, to the other radios. So I can actually enable the tone squelch on this radio. And as we know, the 147020, the repeater I've got stored here has a tone of 131.8 hertz. So if I enable the tone squelch for this radio, the only way that my squelch is going to be able to be broken, actually where I'll actually hear anything coming through on this frequency, is if it's broadcasted to 131.8 hertz tone, just like the tone necessary, to access the repeater. Now to do that, as you can see, I've still got it in the memory mode on channel 14 in the memory channels, and that's the frequency. All right, so what I can do, I can still actually go in and make settings on this and changes. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to megahertz set, I'm going to press, okay, and I want to go up to number 28. Okay, and see, this is the squelch type. I want to press, it's momentary, let's toad encode, let's take and turn it to the TSQ, that stands for tone squelch. And once that's selected, we want to go ahead and program that. Okay, as you can see on the very top here above that, you've got the squelch, the SQ. That actually means that the tone squelch is enabled. All right, so see what I want to do. Now I want to program that back into that memory slot with all this other repeater information. So the way I do that, remember it's number 14. All right, let's press the D/MR for half a second. All right, it's going up to number 16, which 16 is going to be the last. I've got one stored in 15, so we're going to go back to 14 and just do it all over again. Just press just momentarily. And now all the information, the tone squelch is programmed back into that memory slot, as well as all the other information that we had stored prior. Okay. As you can see, we're on number 14. That's your tone squelch. Now, before I hear anything, any squelch, any receive come through this radio, it's going to have to broadcast at 131.8 hertz tone, or the receiver is just going to remain silent as long as I have the noise squelched out. It's a real handy item in case your repeater, if you have like an adjacent repeater that transmits on the same frequency, during times of propagation, it can be a real nuisance. So that's a real handy item to enable, is the tone squelch. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to program the repeater's call sign into the memory slot. As you can see here, the 147020 in memory slot, or memory channel number 14. As you see here, you can see the repeater's frequency. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to program the repeater's call sign into that. So whenever you're going through your memory channels, instead of seeing the 147020, which is the repeater's frequency, you're going to see the repeater's call sign. Okay, so first what I want to do, I can just leave it in the memory mode. Let's go to megahertz set, just press. All right, we want to go to 00 on your menus. Let's go all the way down to the very bottom there. Okay, let's press momentarily. All right, as you can see, the first letter is flashing. So the call sign that I'm going to be programming in here is going to be the K4CVH. Okay, so the first letter is going to be a K. Okay. When I get the first letter, when I want it to move over to the next letter, I go over here to the reverse DW and just press, and it automatically slides it over to the next letter. All right, let's go to the find a 4 here. Let's go all the way through our alphabets, and then you're going to get to your numbers. All right, that's the 4. Let's go to reverse. Let's just press momentarily. Okay, now we need a C. Press. Go find a V. Okay, now we need the H. Okay, now that we've got that, the K4CVH, let's go and press the megahertz set for half a second. Okay, now let's get back out of that. All right, now see, we've got the memory slot number 14, or memory channel. As you can hear, I've been calling them slots, but the memory channels is what they are. Okay, so as you can see now, instead of seeing the 147020, we're now seeing that repeater's call sign, which is the K4CVH. Okay, and we'll do the same thing with the 145130. Okay, so let's go to the megahertz set, press and hold. All right, We go to 00 on the menus. That stands for your alphanumerics. Okay, let's press momentarily. You see your first letter is going to be flashing. Turn your dial. Okay, let's find the K. Come on now. Okay, let's press the reverse DW just momentarily. Okay, let's find a 4. Okay. It's going to be the K4SCC repeater, which is the St. Clair County repeater in Alabama. Okay, so you can see somebody's on that repeater. That's the S. Now we need a C.
Yeah, 40 mobile.
C. Okay, now that we've got that, we want to press and hold. That's the repeater's call, the K4SCC. Okay, let's press the megahertz set for half a second. Okay, so you can see the alphanumerics still show up. Okay, let's press it one more time. Okay, as you can see, instead of seeing the 145130, which is the repeater's frequency, now we're seeing the repeater's call sign, and that is the slot, the memory slot. So let's go back to 14 and see that was the other repeater. Instead of seeing the 147020, we're seeing the K4CVH, which that is actually the Coosa Valley Ham Radio Club's repeater down here in St. Clair County, Alabama. Okay, it's very simple to program a frequency into a memory channel. Once the memory channel is selected, say we want to go and find a simplex frequency that we want to program into one of our memory channels. As you can see here, I'm on a memory channel number 1, and that's the simplex frequency. I want to go into the Vfo mode, press D/MR twice. Okay, as you can see, I'm in the Vfo mode, and I'm going to program another simplex frequency into memory channel number 16. Okay, so we dial and find the whatever frequency. Okay, 146545. All right, and to program that into a memory channel, let's press. Okay, you see the 17 blinking. Let's turn. I can program this into any memory channel that I want. But if I go down here, I'm going to override one of the ones I've already got stored, so I don't want to do that. So I've got 15 in, so I want to go to 16. Once that 16 is selected, I want to press D/MR just momentarily. Okay, and that should be stored into the memory channel. All right, to go check, let's press. All right, let's go up to memory channel 16, and there it is. In some instances, it may be necessary to do a complete microprocessor reset on the radio. Sometimes static electricity can cause corruption of data in the microprocessor in these radios, and it can cause the radio to act erratic. Or if you buy a used radio from somebody that has a lot of the memory channels full of repeaters or whatever, and you want to clear all that out, instead of going in and doing it manually, you can simply do a complete microprocessor reset and restore the radio back to the factory default states. In other words, erase all your memory channels and set all the menu items back to the factory default state. Now to do that, we'll go ahead and turn the radio off. Okay, and this is the tricky part because we've got to hold all these buttons in at the same time that we power the radio back on. So let's give this a try here. It is tricky. Okay, you see this mode that it's going through there. If we go ahead and press the D/MR just momentarily, it's going to set this radio back to the factory default state. It's going to do a complete microprocessor reset. To get out of this mode, we want to press any of the buttons here except the D/MR. Do not press the D/MR unless you are determined that you want to do a complete microprocessor reset and return this radio back to its factory default state. I don't want to do it on this radio. I have this radio configured with all my repeaters, and so I'm going to go ahead and get out of this mode. So we want to press any of these other modes. Okay, so let's go ahead. We'll just go ahead and press the megahertz button. I just showed you how to do a complete microprocessor reset on this radio. All right, now what I'm going to show you how to do a menu set mode reset. What this is going to do, it's going to allow you to save all your memory channels, all the repeater information that you got stored into your memory channels. It's going to allow you to keep that. But what it's going to do is it's going to restore the menu set modes back to the factory default state. So to do that, let's power the radio off. Okay. And we've got to hold in the reverse, the low, and the D/MR at the same time that we power the radio on. Okay. You see that mode it's going through there? Now if we want to follow through with the menu set mode reset, press the D/MR just momentarily. Okay, and when we do that, it's going to reset your menu set mode back to the factory defaults. Okay, and if we want to go ahead and get out of this mode, we'll press any of the other buttons besides the D/MR. So I'll just press the megahertz button and okay. Well, that's that. See, it wasn't so hard after all. I made it just as easy as possible. You shouldn't have any problems following along. If you did, just rewind it, replay it, and keep going over it. You're not going to wear this DVD out, I promise. I hope this tutorial was a great help for you, and now that you become more familiar with the features of that Yaesu FT-2800 and know how to program it, set your menu features, and so what, you'll start enjoying that radio a lot more. It's a great radio. I really enjoy mine. I haven't had any problems with it. And with that, I'll go ahead and say 7 threes. This is Daniel Poe, KF4LYU, and maybe I'll catch you on the air sometime.